Chapter 3. Norman Brouette woke up at 10:15 in the morning to the sound of kids fighting outside the bedroom window and country music from the radio in the kitchen. He went to the back door in his saggy shorts and undershirt, threw it open, and yelled, "You kids shut your heads!" A moment's pause. Luke and Bobby he looked from the old and rusty dump truck they had been arguing over. As always when he saw his kids, Norm felt dragged two ways at once. His heart ached to see them wearing hand-me-downs and Salvation Army give-outs like the ones you saw the children in East Jornet wearing. And at the same time, a horrible, shaking anger would sweep through him, making him want to stride out there and beat the living shit out of them. "Yes, Daddy," Luke said in a subdued way. He was 9. "Yes, Daddy," Bobby echoed. He was 7, going on 8. Norm stood for a moment, glaring at them, and slammed the door shut. He stood for a moment looking indecisively at the pile of clothes he wore yesterday, lying at the foot of the sagging double bed where he dropped them. "That slutty bitch," he thought. "She didn't even hang up my studs." "Lila!" he bawled. There was no answer. He had considered ripping the door open again and asking Luke where the hell she went. It wasn't Donated Commodities Day until next week, and if she was down at the employment office in Braintree again, then she was an even bigger fool than he thought. He didn't bother to ask the kids. He felt tired and he had a queasy, thumping headache. Felt like a hangover, but he'd only had 3 beers down at Hap's the night before. That accident had been a hell of a thing. The woman and the baby dead in the car. The man camping dying on the way to the hospital. By the time Hap had gotten back, the state patrol had come and gone, and the wrecker, and the Braintree undertaker's hack. Vic Palfrey had given the laws a statement for all 5 of them. The undertaker, also the county coroner, refused to speculate on what might have hit him. "But it ain't cholera, and don't you go scaring people saying it is. There will be an autopsy, and you can read about it in the paper." Miserable little pissant, Norm thought, slowly dressing himself in yesterday's clothes. His headache turned into a real blinder. Those kids had better be quiet, or they were going to have a pair of broken arms to mouth off about. Why the hell couldn't they have school all year? He considered tucking his shirt into his pants, decided the president probably wouldn't be stopping by that day, and shuffled out into the kitchen in his sock feet. The bright sunlight coming in the east windows made him squint. The cracked Philco radio over the stove saying, "But baby, can you tell me if anyone can? Baby, can you dig your man? He's a righteous man. Tell me, baby, can you dig your man?" Things had come to a pretty pass when they had to play black rock and roll music like that in a local country music station. Norm turned it off before he could split his head. There was a note by the radio, and he picked it up, narrowing his eyes to read it. "Dear Norm, Sally Hodges says she needs somebody to sit her kids this morning and says she'll give me $1. I'll be back for lunch. The sausage if you want. I love you, honey. Lila." Norm put the note back and just stood there for a moment, thinking it over and trying to get the sense of it in his mind. Babysitting. $1 for Ralph Hodges' wife. The 3 elements slowly came together in his mind. Lila had gone out to sit Sally's 3 kids to earn a lousy $1 and had stuck him with Luke and Bobby. By God, it was hard times when a man had to sit home and wipe his kids' noses so his wife could go out and scratch out a lousy $1 that wouldn't even buy them a gallon of gas. That was hard fucking times. Dull anger came to him, making his headache even worse. He shuffled slowly to the Frigidaire, bought one he had been making good overtime, and opened it. Most of the shelves were empty except for leftovers Lila had put up in refrigerator dishes. He hated those little plastic Tupperware dishes, old beans, old corn, a leftover dive of chili. Nothing a man liked to eat. Nothing in there but little Tupperware dishes and 3 old sausages done up in handy wrap. He bent, looking at them, the familiar, helpless anger now compounded by the dull throb in his head. Those sausages looked like somebody cut the cocks off in 3 of those pygmies they had down in Africa or South America, or wherever the fuck it was they had them. He didn't feel like eating anyway. He felt damn sick when he got right down to it. He went over to the stove, scratched a match from the piece of sandpaper nailed to the wall beside it, lit the front gas ring, and put on the coffee. Then he sat down and waited dully for it to boil. Just before it did, he had to scramble a snot rag out of his back pocket to catch a big, wet sneeze. Coming down with a cold, he thought. Ain't that something nice on top of everything else? But it never occurred to him to think of the phlegm that had been running out of that fellow champion's pump the night before. Hap was in the garage bay putting on new tailpipe and Tony Lemonster Scout, and Vic Palford was rocking back on a folding camp chair, watching him and drinking a Dr. Pepper when the bell dinged out front. Vic squinted. "It's State Patrol," he said. "Looks like your cousin there, Joe Bob." "Okay." Hap came out from beneath the Scout, wiping his hands on a ball of waste. On his way through the office, he sneezed heavily. He hated summer colds. They were the worst. Joseph Robert Brown, who was almost 6.5 feet tall, was standing by the back of his cruiser filling up. Beyond him, the 3 pumps Campion had driven over the night before were neatly lined up like dead soldiers. "Hey, Joe Bob!" Hap said, coming out. "Hap, you some bitch," Joe Bob said, putting the pump handle on automatic and stepping over the hose. "You're lucky this place still standing this morning." "Jeez, Stu Redman saw the guy coming and switched off the pumps. That was a load of sparks, though." "Still damn lucky. Liz Knapp, I come over for some besides a fill-up." "Yeah?" Joe Bob's eyes went to Vic, who was standing near the station door. "Was the old geezer here last night?" "Who, Vic? Yeah, he comes over most every night." "Can he keep his mouth shut?" "Sure, I reckon he's a good enough old boy." The automatic feed kicked off. Hap squeezed off another 20 cents worth, then put the nozzle back on the pump and switched it off. He walked back to Joe Bob. "So, what's the story?" "Well, it's going sad. I guess the old fellow out of here, too, and if you get a chance, give from the rest of them that was here." They walked across the tarmac and into the office. "A good morning to you, officer," Vic said. Joe Bob nodded. "Coffee, Joe Bob?" Hap asked. "I guess not." He looked at them heavily. "Thing is, I don't know how my superiors would like me being here at all. I don't think they would. So when them motherfuckers come here, you don't let them know I tipped you, right?" "What guys, officer?" Vic asked. "Health department guys," Joe Bob said. Vic said, "Oh, jeez, was cholera. I knew it was." Hap looked from one to the other. "Joe Bob?" "I don't know nothing," Joe Bob said, sitting down in one of the plastic Wilco chairs. His bony knees only came up to his neck. He took a pack of Chesterfields from his pocket and lit up. "Fitting in the other corner." "That was a smart ass," Hap said fiercely. "You should have seen him strutting around in here, Joe Bob, just like a pea turkey that got its first heart on, shushing people and all that." He's a big turd in a little bowl, all right," Joe Bob agreed. "Well, he got Dr. James to look at his Campion, and the two of them called in another doctor that I don't know. Then they got on the phone to Houston, and around 3 this morning, they came into that little airport outside of Braintree." "Who did?" "Pathologists, 3 of them. They were in there with the bodies until 8 o'clock. Cutting on them is my guess, although I don't know for sure. Then they got on the phone with the plague center in Atlanta, and those guys are going to be here this afternoon. But they said in the meantime that the state health department was to send some fellas out here to see all the guys that were in the station last night and the guys that drove the rescue unit to Braintree. I don't know, but it sounds to me like they want you quarantined." "Moses and the bulrushes," Hap said, frightened. "The Atlanta Plague Center's federal," Vic said. "Would they send out a plane load of federal man just for cholera?" "Search me," Joe Bob said. "But I thought you guys had a right to know. From all I heard, you just tried to lend a hand." "It's appreciated, Joe Bob," Hap said slowly. "What did James and his other doctor say?" "Not much." "Not much, but they look scared. I'd never seen doctors look scared like that. Didn't care much for it." A heavy silence fell. Joe Bob went to the drinking machine and got a bottle of Fresca. The faint hissing sound of carbonation was audible as he popped the cap. As Joe Bob sat down again, Hap took a Kleenex from the box next to the cash register, wiped his runny nose, and folded it into the pocket of his greasy overall. "What have you found out about Campion?" Vic asked. "Anything?" "We're still checking," Joe Bob said with a trace of importance. "His ID says he was from San Diego, but a lot of stuff in his wallet was 2-3 years out of date. His driver's license was expired, had a Bank of America card that was issued in 1986, and that was expired too. He had an Army card, so we're checking with them. The captain has a hunch that Campion lived in San Diego for maybe 4 years." "AWOL?" Vic asked. He produced a big red bandana, hawked, and spat into it. "Don't know yet. But his Army card said he was in until 97, and he was in civvies, he was with his family, and he was a fuck of a long way from California. Listen to my mouth run." "Well, I'll get in touch with the others and tell them what you said anyway," Hap said, much obliged. Joe Bob stood up. "Sure, just keep my name out of it. I sure wouldn't want to lose my job. You buddies don't need to know who tips you, do they?" "No," Hap said, and Vic echoed it. As Joe Bob went to the door, Hap said a little apologetically, "That's 5, even for gas, Joe Bob. I hate to charge you with it, but with things the way they are..." "That's okay." Joe Bob handed him a credit card. "State's paying. I got my credit credit slip to show I was here. Hap was filling out the slip. He sneezed twice. Won't watch that, Joe Bob said. Nothing any worse than some coal. Don't I know it? Suddenly from behind them, Vic said, Maybe it ain't a call. They turned to him. Vic looked frightened. I woke up this morning sneezing and hacking away like 60, Vic said. Had a mean headache, too. I took some aspirins and it's gone back some, but I'm still full of snot. Maybe we're coming down with it. What that Campion had. What he died of. Hap looked at him for a long time, and as he was about to put forward all his reasons why it couldn't be, he sneezed again. Joe Bob looked at them both gravely for a moment, and then said, it might not be such a bad idea to close the station up, just for the day. Hap looked at him, scared, and tried to remember what all his reasons were. Couldn't think of a one. All he could remember was that he had also woke with a headache and a runny nose. Well, everyone caught a cold every once in a while. But before that guy had shown up, he had been fine. Just fine. The three Hodges kids were 6, 4, and 18 months. The two youngest were taking naps, and the oldest was out back digging a hole. Lila Barrett was in the living room, watching The Young and the Restless. She hoped Sally wouldn't return until it was over. Ralph Hodges had bought a big color TV when times had been better in Arnett, and Lila loved to watch the afternoon stories in color. Everything was so much prettier. She drew in her cigarette and then let the smoke out in spasms as a racking cough seized her. She went into the kitchen and spat the mouthful of crap she had brought up down the drain. She had gotten up with the cough, and all day it had felt like someone was tickling the back of her throat with a feather. She went back to the living room after taking a peek out the pantry window to make sure Bert Hodges was okay. A commercial was on now. 2 dancing bottles of toilet bowl cleaner. Lila let her eyes drift around the room and wished her own house looked this nice. Sally's hobby was doing paint-by-the-numbers pictures of Christ, and they were all over the living room in nice frames. She especially liked the big one of the Last Supper mounted in the back of the TV. It had come with 60 different oil colors, Sally had told her, and it took almost 3 months to finish. It was a real work of art. Just as the story came back on, Baby Cheryl started to cry, a whooping, ugly yell broken by bursts of coughing. Lila put out her cigarette and hurried into the bedroom. Eva, the 4-year-old, was still fast asleep, but Cheryl was lying on her back in her crib, and her face was glowing an alarming purple color. Her cries began to sound strangled. Lila, who wasn't afraid of the croup after seeing both of her own through-bouts with it, picked her up by the heels and swatted her firmly on the back. She had no idea if Dr. Spock recommended this sort of treatment because she never read him. It worked nicely on Baby Cheryl, though. She emitted a froggy croak and suddenly spat an amazing wad of yellow phlegm out onto the floor. Better? Yes, said Baby Cheryl. She was almost asleep again. Lila wiped up the mess with a Kleenex. She couldn't remember ever having seen a baby cough up so much phlegm all at once. She sat down in front of The Young and the Restless again, frowning. She lit another cigarette, seized over the first puff, and then began to cough herself.